The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, and welcome to today's webinar, The 3 Biggest Mistakes That Kill BYOD, sponsored by Bitzer Mobile and hosted by WebAttract, the leaders in informational webinars. I'm Lori Dearman, Senior Webinar Producer with WebAttract, and I'll be your moderator and host for today's session. For those of you not familiar with Bitzer Mobile, they provide an enterprise mobility solution which is based on a secure container with the most integration with Windows backend infrastructure while maintaining a rich user experience. In just a moment, I'll be introducing our featured speakers, Naeem Zafar and Klein, who will be having a fireside chat, if you will, on the complexities and opportunities that come with taking a workforce mobile, and present some options available to IT professionals today. We'll also have Andy Smith join us later in the program to show us some use case scenarios and demonstrate how next generation tools can enable the use of mobile devices with enterprise-grade security without sacrificing the user experience. We've invited you, along with a diverse group of business owners from over 35 states and a wide variety of industries, who want to learn the do's and don'ts of taking a workforce mobile, and more specifically, how to avoid the most common mistakes. Regardless of your industry or location, we're certain that you'll find today's presentation of value. Before we jump in, let's take just a moment to meet our panel of 3 thought leaders in this industry. First up, we have Klein, who's a market research and consulting professional at VDC Research for Fortune 500 firms. Over the past 15 years, Eric has done leading research in areas such as innovation and enterprise software. His previous employers include AMR Research, the Yankee Group, and Affiliated Computer Services. Eric holds a bachelor's in finance from Boston University. Also a longtime tech geek and wannabe political pundit, but Eric, I think that's for another webinar. Welcome, it's great to have you with us today representing VDC.
Thanks, Lori. It's great to be here today, and I'm really looking forward to talking about enterprise mobility, one of my favorite topics with Bitzer, and of course one of the hottest topics in my space, which is BYOD.
Well, we're looking forward to it. Now, for anyone who isn't familiar with VDC, they're a long-tenured high-tech market research company, and the firm is known for its detailed market data and forecasts, which are foundational to its written research. VDC has 4 core practices, and Eric is a senior analyst covering mobile software for the firm's mobile and wireless practice, which has been covering the enterprise mobility market for over a decade. Now for Bitzer Mobile, we have Naeem Zafar, who is co-founder and CEO at Bitzer, and he's actively engaged in the industry dialogue about the changing landscape of enterprise mobility. A serial entrepreneur who has worked at 6 startups, served as president and CEO of 3 venture-backed technology companies. Naeem also teaches at the University of California, Berkeley, and authored 6 books on entrepreneurship. He holds degrees in electrical engineering from Brown University and University of Minnesota. When he's not in the classroom or the boardroom, he's an aspiring sommelier, and in Naeem's own words, a hopeless golfer. Now, somehow, Naeem, I suspect you have a bit more hope than I do on the golf course, but welcome today to the webinar.
Thank you, Laurie. Great to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise. And just one more speaker to introduce today, Andy Smith, a veteran of over 20 years in the high-tech industry in Silicon Valley. Recently, he was VP of Product Management for PureFresh and Apexon. Prior to that, he spent 7 years in network security and compliance with Versa Systems, ActiveCard, and Verticom. Andy's a frequent speaker on technology and security at industry events internationally and has an MBA from Santa Clara University, bachelor's in mathematics from Occidental College. So Andy, we won't discuss your exact age today, but I do understand that you ran a marathon for your 40th birthday. So hats off to you and welcome. I'm looking forward to hearing your part of the conversation.
Thanks, Laurie. I guess I can't use the 39-year-old excuse anymore.
No, I think that's out. Now, folks, while today is no marathon, we do have a lot on the agenda, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you, Eric.
Great. Thank you, Lori. I want to set up today's discussion with a look at the way, and find it really relevant to talk about some of the trends that are impacting the way we work today and how it's changing the way we work. Here at VDC, we are constantly surveying the market, and our data really consistently shows that businesses are recognizing the benefits of implementing real-time business techniques and are investing in enterprise mobility solutions to empower their expanding mobile workforce. Not only are mobile devices becoming more sophisticated and powerful, we all love our mobile devices, but that's really being empowered by the fact that we have better bandwidth speeds and coverage, and carriers are continuing to invest in improving our network infrastructure. Another really important trend that's impacting this mobile ecosystem is this burgeoning app or app centricity trend that I'd like to call it. We're really seeing software developers thinking mobile first. Mobile expertise is being brought in-house inside of organizations, and these trends have really brought a lot of significant opportunity for businesses and changing the way that companies are interacting with their customers. So clearly, consumer adoption of smartphones and tablets are the significant drivers to many of these investments, and that brings me to BYOD, the meat of our discussion today. Getting these personal devices onto corporate networks has really become table stakes for a lot of companies. Moving forward, controlling and managing devices once they're on on your corporate network is going to be a critical issue. So Naeem, maybe you can jump in here. Tell me about the role that Bitzer plays and what I've laid out and your worldview on these topics. I'm sure you have some thoughts and some use cases that you've seen from your customers.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, Eric, is it is a profound. I would totally agree with that, because there's a profound change going on right now how we work. And if you look at my next slide, this is a picture we all can relate to, because we have been fighting for the last 50, 60, 100 years traffic and painful way to wake up and drive to a building. Why? Because that's where the data was, and that's where the people were. So what you're describing as tablets and broadband is changing what a worker looks like. You can now access data on your smartphone, on your tablet, no matter where you are, and you can connect with people with video conferencing and the way we are connected today. That will change the shape of work. It will change how we interact and work. So I think that it's very profound changes going on, and it makes sense for people to educate themselves on what are the best practices, how to enable enterprise mobility for your organization. I was going to ask Laurie, maybe we should ask our audience if they have already thinking about BYOD, bring your own device, or enterprise mobility.
I think it's a great idea, so I'll go ahead and launch that first poll, and we'd like to hear from all of you. Does your organization encourage employees to use their own devices, allow BYOD on a portion of the network, perhaps forbid employees to BYOD, or maybe you forbid employees to BYOD, but some do anyway? All right, let's take a look.
Interesting results, Naeem. Yeah, so this is what I would expect, and something that we see here at VDC when we ask this question, the inveritable mix. I'm a little surprised by the small number of employees that are forbidden to have a BYOD and are violating BYOD policies, rather. That's a small number that I would expect a little higher, but maybe there's some folks that aren't necessarily being honest on the line here. But any thoughts on that, Naeem?
No, I think it's an encouraging trend. I'm surprised that how many people either encourage or allow. This is good news.
Yeah, I mean, we know that there's a lot of mixed environments right now with a lot of folks carrying two devices. But, I would say, I would argue this, I think what's changing now is that the IT organization has really been accustomed to pushing back. And I would say increasingly it's the employees are doing the pushing and are increasingly getting their personal mobile devices supported on corporate networks. And this trend really has brought the need to implement mobile policies and invest in solutions to manage an increasingly mobile workforce. So let's talk about some of the key enablers for a BYOD environment, Naeem. And I see we've got our three-legged stool up here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention, that a lot of people think about by BYOD or bring your own device, and they think about apps. What apps could we mobilize? What do these apps do? This is great, but what we are seeing as the best practices are, first, let's get the infrastructure right, because BYOD can blow up on you and fail on you unless you get the infrastructure right. And to me, these are three legs of the stool, which means, first foremost, authentication. You should not have to make an exception just because an employee is coming from a mobile device. Whatever authentication mechanism you use at your desk, whether it's smart card based authentication or Windows Active Directory or even single sign-on with Kerberos, your mobile solution should support the same. Number two is data security. And it's not just data security at rest. Yes, you must go beyond what device may offer for encryption and securing the data and make sure that it could be wiped when you lose the device or the device is compromised, but data security in transit. How do you connect with your network? And people have traditionally thought of VPN as the solution, but VPN coming from a locked device like laptop makes sense. From a device which is not locked, not under IT's control, like a mobile device, there are all kind of hazard. Rogue application can travel back. So there are issues to be dealt with. And finally, is data isolation. Are you isolating your personal data from corporate data? Can you apply security policy to the corporate data without ruining the user experience? Because ultimately the reason is called consumerization of the IT, because of the rich consumer-like experience you want to enjoy on the smartphones. So you got to get the access right and then talk about applications.
I like that last point. I think we're all pretty spoiled with the way we interact with our devices, and I think that user experience is paramount, and we see that in our data. I think you've laid this out really nicely, these enablers. I'll add that I think that it's a real challenge that we're seeing when we talk with end users who are implementing mobile solutions, is really putting mobile policies in place and acquiring the necessary tools. That's a challenge, and it's really important to keep in mind that we definitely are still in the early stages of real true mobile enablement within the enterprise. Some companies are definitely taking baby steps. Some are further along than others.
But does your research actually, Eric, does point out that are companies benefiting from all the BYOD strategies, or is it still too early to research on this?
Yeah, so right here, I definitely want to share that. I think our research certainly does show that companies are seeing gains from going mobile. And clearly, as you can see from our data here that we collect, this is a recent survey endeavor, that there's an ROI theme here, and we know businesses are constantly being asked to do more with less, meaning IT organizations. And moving forward, mobile solutions are going to play an increasing role throughout these companies' supply chains as these devices come into the enterprise, whether they're corporate sanctioned or not. So I think, as you can see here, there's really an ROI theme, and it's really giving companies the opportunity to improve that customer loyalty and generate repeat business with their customers.
Yeah, that is encouraging to see, because we see also use cases in our own customer base.
Yes, I was going to ask, how are you seeing people deploy mobile solutions, with your customers? Because, you can give a real world example, and maybe you can talk about some of those use cases.
Yeah, I think what you hit upon is correct. Improving real-time decision making. I mean, how many times you have been waiting in a doctor's office, to be discharged, and doctor is waiting for the doctor to arrive so he can look at your lab results and you can go home. The fact is, there's no reason doctor cannot look at your results wherever he is. And it's not uncommon for a doctor to belong to a couple of clinics and flipping back and forth. So we have now doctors who are able to access securely the customer record and messages from the nurse and make a decision while they're in transit. So it makes the efficiency argument very strong. The other argument which you see is a lot of time when you are remote and you want to do business. So Laurie, if you look at the next slide, this is an example I have taken when somebody is an insurance agent, or they're at an offsite some decision. Instead of talking to a customer, coming back home, sending them a proposal, now you can, on the tablet, you can show them the data, and you can make a lot more progress if you're a remote agent working offsite in sales or in any transaction. I mean, this picture is sort of an interesting one, because this is how the business is being done at my gym. So
I love this picture. I think this is really neat, and I saw something somewhat similar. Someone at my office in my parking lot was having their windshield replaced, and that transaction ended with a tablet, actually. So and I recently took a car service from the airport or from my hotel to the airport. Transaction ended with a tablet and a swipe. So I mean, we're well aware of I think some of these traditional solutions that businesses have put in place, but I'm referring to traditional solutions around VPNs, and we talked about remote access, on other platforms. And mobile device management, of course, is a very now pretty well known and reliable method for deploying securing mobile platforms. What's your view on some of these more traditional and well-known solutions? And if I'm a CEO, what should I really be looking for to secure that device?
So I think most people start by looking, okay, what do I do now? I know VPN used to work great. I use that for all my laptop users. So let's go with VPN. Why not VPN here? So then they install a VPN client, and many devices support that. The problem they soon realize is that VPN, a mobile device, is not locked down by the IT department like laptop used to be. So any application, including rogue applications, can now crawl back to your server, and that concerns them. And they also know that VPN does not help with the single sign-on such as Kerberos and authentication. So they end up then adding a mobile device management component to control what application you can download and install. So now you have an MDM solution next to a VPN solution, and MDM solution kind of takes over your device. In a corporate-owned device, maybe you can say, hey, this is a corporate-owned device, I'm going to control the device. But it's my personal device. Now my employer knows what application I'm downloading, how long I'm using each one of them. There's a white list and a black list of applications. I got to put a 4-digit, 5-digit, 6-digit PIN anytime I want to grab my phone to make a call or check stock quote. It's getting into my user experience. And furthermore, it does nothing about protecting my data or data leakage prevention. If I back up my phone to iCloud, my corporate data is already traveled. So this solution, which people have traditionally been used, has many holes, and people are beginning to recognize that.
Yeah, those are good. Those are good points, and I think those are some really solid criteria and things that are required. When we do research, we definitely are really seeing on a regular basis that businesses that are making this leap and investing in mobile solutions are really beginning to express concern around the business risks associated with BYOD. Right, it's such a hot topic, and it's not surprising. Employees are able to increasingly, access often very sensitive data on their personal device, and obviously that can lead to corporate data being accessed by an unauthorized user, and lead to a number of other security issues. And really the bottom line is security always, whenever we survey on this topic, it ranks as one of the top concerns for companies that are making investments in mobility. How does Bitzer approach that, and what architecture does Bitzer see or utilize to address those concerns?
So at Bitzer Mobile, we have taken a approach that we try to minimize any interference with your user experience. So our approach is a container-based approach. So you notice on the right-hand side is a mobile device, and no matter if you have Android or iOS or a BlackBerry or Windows Phone device, a user downloads a secure Bitzer secure container on their phone device. That Bitzer secure container then talks to a gateway server sitting in the DMZ. That gateway server is negotiating with Active Directory, is talking to all the application, is able to keep track of single sign-on. And the connection between the container and the server is not VPN, it's an app tunnel, which means it's not a device level connection, so any application from the mobile device can crawl back to the server. App tunnel is a mutually authenticated SSL connection at layer 7 of the OSI stack. So only the Bitzer container can talk back to the server. So this is we have a patent on that. So all the traffic to the corporate server is aggregated and through the app tunnel. Then you have an admin control panel, which is the fourth part of the solution on the top. And that's how you apply security policy to container. So every user container could be remotely locked, wiped, geofenced, time fenced. You can push application, you can remove application. It works off the same groups you have in your Active Directory. And again, if you're using it's hardened container, so you cannot do cut and paste from the container in and out. You have full document editing capability inside the container. You have secure browser. You can access SharePoint. And it also prevents copy and backup to the cloud. If you're using smart card for authentication, like two-factor authentication, we support that. So it's a very end-to-end comprehensive solution based on this isolation of personal user data and experience from corporate data and policy.
Yeah, you just used the word comprehensive, and I was going to use that word when I responded to what you just laid out there because I would agree. I mean, I think that's pretty elegant, and you even mentioned the patent that you have around this process. I think the authentication capability that you described is really important moving forward for our increasing number of companies that are going to make these investments and deployments. And I think it's an area that, as someone who's covered this space for some time, I know that's historically been an area that's a challenge for mobile platforms. And now with what I would call modern mobile platforms, and I'm referring to iPhone, Android, BlackBerry. Moving forward, I think that it's really a challenge authentication, and it's something that's going to be hard in the BYOD environment. I know we've allocated some time, and I want to do it justice. Do our listeners justice. We've allocated some time at the end of our webinar to talk about kind of the landscape and the competition. I'm looking forward to talking about that with you. But let me transition and let's get to really the crux of how we lured everyone in today, right? Which was the 3 mistakes that can kill BYOD, and I think that's what a lot of people are on here to talk about. So I'm going to set you up and have you lay that out for us.
Right. So we have talked to probably hundreds of IT managers, CIOs, and people in mobility, and really what we have seen is people have gone ahead and implemented a fairly harsh security policy, either with MDM or or not having supporting single sign-on, and you basically end up ruining the user experience. We had one large company in East Coast when there was a user revolt once they learned that what do they have to agree to have a BYOD strategy. So you really cannot ruin the user experience. So you have to think about what users can do with their own personal device, and don't convert that into a BlackBerry. You got to have a different approach. Second thing which people don't pay attention to, and comes back to bite them later on BYOD, is the whole thing of data leakage prevention. Just because you can do mobile device management it's not sufficient to protect the leakage of corporate data, whether it's in data in transit or in cut and paste or is doc editing or is cloud backup. That's the second thing which I've seen people deploy BYOD, then realizing the data leakage problem and then shutting it down. And third thing is the classic one, Henry Ford's quote that you can have my Ford car in any color you want as long as it's black. That doesn't sit well with the users today. Users are paying from their own pocket to buy a platform which they like, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad or a HTC phone or an Android by Motorola or something, or Windows Phone. Even Windows phones are quite cool now. So you got to have a cross-platform support. If you kill that and say we can do BYOD as long as you buy this one single type of device, that it's not prevalent. So let's not make these 3 mistakes.
Yep. I mean, those are the issues as I see them moving forward, Naeem, the way you've laid it out. We've seen some damaging security breaches in the past, and not too long ago, and I think that can really obviously have a big impact on a firm's reputation and brand. Clearly, mobile policies increasingly are going to need to accommodate BYOD, and are going to be top of mind for a lot of companies. And that's both large and small companies. And let's not forget there's also obviously a large segment of the population out there that's doing a corporate-owned, personally enabled model, and maybe we can talk about that as well as we move forward. But let's transition now from here, and let me ask you, how you see a CIO needing to proceed here. What needs to be in place for a BYOD program to be successful?
Right. So I think so far I've talked about how to secure access, how to build the right infrastructure. The fact is that's great. So you got to do 1, 2, and 3, but then you got to get to number 4, because the reason you're putting the BYOD thing in place is to enable your employees to be productive. So once you have the right authentication mechanism, you have addressed this data security and control of corporate data issues, then you need to be able to run applications and access your intranet. So there, the right solution should support a secure browser. It should support how to handle HTML5 application. It has to support web apps. It has to support native apps. So we address all 4 types I mentioned. So our whole approach is end-to-end solution. You get the access right, then you get the applications right. And I'm going to ask, think about, I'll show you a couple of demos. Actually, I'm going to ask Andy to show you some demos later on how this works.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I think our audience would benefit from that. I mean, we're going to be talking about the competitive landscape, as I mentioned. I'd say this, from where I sit and what I'm seeing, we're enterprise mobility is really hot right now. There's a lot of activity in this space, a lot of companies thinking about it, and a lot of vendors like yours attacking this market. There's definitely some real differentiation happening here, and I think it'll be good to see a demo. And let me first, before we do that, cue up the next poll for our audience. And maybe Laura, you can put that in front of everyone.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Coming up on the screen is that second poll, and we'd like to know, when it comes to enterprise mobility or BYOD, what are your top 2 concerns?
These are the right these are the right topics or the right selections here, so it'll be interesting to see what we get back here.
And I see some trends already, so let me close that up and let's take a look at it.
Interesting.
Yeah, actually, I'm this good data here, but I'm pleasantly surprised to see a lot more people worrying about data leakage. I'm a little surprised to see that not people enough worrying about single sign-on, because I'm telling you, from the little screen trying to log into every SharePoint site or every document every few minutes, very annoying.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. And I think, again, I would say in moving forward, a lot of companies are going to be going down the authentication path when they enable these solutions. I think it would be really beneficial to see, how an IT department can control a secure container solution like yours. We know with BYOD, from when I talk to end users, I think employees could definitely feel like there's someone, their every move may be monitored or watched. And, we all know that our mobile devices are pretty personal. MDM solutions definitely bring the ability to control, remotely lock, or even wipe a device, and I think that's really important. And we all have heard these stories of or maybe even unfortunately been one of the people who've left a laptop in an airport or in a taxi cab, and now of course it's increasingly smartphones and tablets. I'm going to welcome Andy Smith into the conversation, and Andy, I know you have a brief demo queued up, and you can demonstrate how some of these concerns are being addressed with the Bitzer solution.
Absolutely, thanks, Eric. We'll go through the lost phone use case, and so what we're going to demonstrate a little bit that what the smooth user experience of logging onto the phone, as Naeem mentioned, you definitely don't want to restrict the consumer user experience, and then we'll demonstrate how an administrator can locate that device out there and can remotely lock it. In fact, if it has been left in a cab or something like that, which is obviously getting a lost device. Now with something mobile, it's not somebody stealing the laptop, which can occur on occasion, but the frequency of a lost mobile phone or a lost tablet is huge. So go ahead, Lori, cue up this demo. We recorded this ahead of time to make sure that everything is nice and smooth for you here. And so I'll just talk to it. What you see on the right-hand side of the screen is Bitzer's admin control panel. On the left is my iPad and mirroring up onto the screen. So first we'll do is we'll turn it off and log in, and you can see that I'll just access the tablet and no device level pin, nothing to hamper my user experience. So what I've done is clicked on the Bitzer container, opens up, and it's only when I click on the container that now I have to enter my corporate credentials. I open the corporate credentials, they're validated, boom, app tunnel, and I'm in. So it's that simple, but again, I only have to enter those credentials when I'm on the corporate container. Now we'll get over to the admin side, and you can see I click on the container tab at the top, and I'll locate my container. I've actually logged in as Jay Carter there, no Jimmy Carter. And I can see that what applications I've got on there. If I click on the activity tab, I know exactly the last time I logged in, when I exited, all the activity that's gone on, and I can click on location and find out, well, sure enough, I didn't leave it in a cab. I actually left my tablet at home. That's my house there. Google did a very nice job of finding me. And that's where my tablet it happens to be sitting. But I still want to go ahead as an admin. I will lock the container in case somebody picks it up. You don't want them accessing the corporate information. And you can type a message, if found, please call this number. So if anybody picks it up and clicks on the container, that they'll see an alert. So I'll go ahead and select lock here. And that sends a command off. Boom, you can see immediately the container is locked. Anything else you can do on that tablet, it's purely protecting the corporate information, and it's that easy to lock down the container. So just wanted to show that brief use case of how to remotely lock, and you could wipe it too, all the data gone if you in fact think that device is not recoverable. So that's how
that's
easy it is.
yeah, that does look pretty seamless. I mean, I know that end users I speak with are definitely asking about another really important area, and we saw that in our poll actually, which came up I think second in our poll, was that data leakage prevention, commonly referred to as DLP. What about a common scenario that could lead to the data leakage exposure, like a simple cut and paste, or how about the ability to open up email attachments or corporate intranet? I even noticed you had a SharePoint icon in that secure container you were showing. Maybe you can walk through some of those scenarios.
Absolutely. One of our largest customers, they have the way they're dealing with data leakage. One of the ways is that they have a corporate policy that if you are sharing documents internally, that you do not make email attachments. So they're fully utilizing SharePoint, and if you want to share a document internally, you put that document up on SharePoint and you send links around via email. And that's great if you're accessing that link from inside the network, but if I get that email on my phone when I'm out remote in the field, I click on that link and I'm stuck because that's an internal SharePoint site. I can't get access. It's pretty frustrating. So that's the problem we've solved for them, is access in, and then you can open those documents inside the container. So we'll go ahead and show you how that works. So thanks, Lori. Start the demo there. Great. So again, I'm seeing my iPad here, and first thing we'll do is I'm going to open the email client. So here's your native Apple email. You can see that, hey, there's an email that says we have a new competitor. Here's their website. That's an externally facing link. When I click that externally facing link, it just opens up in Safari browser. So that's an external grade, open in Safari. I can do whatever I want with it. Now I'm going to move back to the email, and the second sentence says, hey, product management has uploaded a confidential analysis. It can be found here on our internal SharePoint server, and here's the link to it. So when I select that link, that gets redirected to the container, forces the user to authenticate. You're trying to get to an internal site now, so I authenticate, and the app tunnel is being set up inside the network. That you saw the container open briefly, and this is now this Bitzer secure browser where I now have the document in my browser. And so once you're inside of our secure browser, then it's easy to do things like restrict, copy, paste. So here I'll copy some sensitive information in. I'm going to leave the browser to get out, go back to the email, leave the container. You can see I am in fact in the container. There I leave the container, I'll go back to email, open a new message and try to paste that sensitive information. And you can see that that's not available in the clipboard anymore. So once you have our container in our browser inside the container, you can do things like restrict, copy, paste, and backup and things like that. So that's how we help with data leakage prevention.
Well, good. That was interesting, data leakage. Are we going to look at something else, Andy, or?
Yep, one more. We're going to take a scenario of, a union worker or possibly a healthcare employee where you want to restrict the location they can access the container from. So if it's a healthcare worker, maybe they can only look at it when they're on premises of the certain office they're at, or a union worker should only be accessing from a certain city. So you can really do granular control.
Yeah, fine-grained security policy, like geofencing and stuff. Yeah, gotta see that.
Absolutely. So go ahead, Lori, kick this one off. And we'll just do these simple use case scenarios. So again, we've got the control panel on the right and the iPad on the left. So I'll first log into the container, just so we have that up and running. It doesn't have to be logged in to lock it, but you get to see a little UI there. So I'll go ahead, I'll log into the container, and it's going to, again, set up the app tunnel back to the corporation. So now I'll move to the policy tab in my control panel, and these policies can be assigned to different groups, so I can have a different policy for marketing versus executives versus sales, etc. These policies allow us to do things like detect compromised platform. I can set my PIN strength and things like that. So here's your time access. I can define only certain times, and in fact geo access. So here's what we'll put a geo fence around here. So to say these are union workers, oil rig workers, that should really only be accessing the container from Houston. I'll save that. I happen to be in Silicon Valley right now, so I'm not in Houston. And then when I save this policy, you'll wait for just a second, and then you can see that the container will in fact lock because of my location. There it has in fact locked. Access to location is not allowed. Just show you some brief other things. You can restrict devices if you don't want to allow Android devices, and also I can turn off things in the browser, like I can disable download or enable download of documents from the browser. So again, set these policies up, assign them to different groups, and you're taking policy and affecting this just on the container. You have nothing to do. The user can do whatever they want inside the iPad, and it's just affecting the corporate assets and protecting that data.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, no, that looks nice. I think that the way Naeem laid out that end-to-end solution that he described a few slides back, I think a lot of those capabilities definitely speak to that capability. I'd like to take this opportunity right here in the webinar as we're getting, we're a little bit about 40 minutes in. I just want to make sure that everyone starts sending questions, and we want to allow some time for Q&A on the back end. And I know, or I'm sure that a lot of you folks have a lot of questions, and we want to make sure we address them. So with that being said, Naeem, I want to talk about where we are today and how we got here and how the market is evolving around us. I've been tracking what analysts like to call enterprise mobility for some time now, and I think it's obviously, as I said earlier, it's a really hot topic. We know that. We see that within our customer base here. There's a lot of interest in investment happening in this space, right, from venture capital firms. And clearly businesses are starting to really make meaningful investments in mobile solutions. The one thing that I see that I think is interesting, and I know we've got a slide up on the screen that you're going to walk us through, there's a lot of paths that have emerged, right? A lot of paths that have emerged to secure mobile devices and applications in enterprise environments. And this has Bitzer participating in a really competitive market with a lot of upstarts. And also I'm seeing, and I think a lot of us on the line have seen recent announcements from large and established vendors that have adjusted their adjusting their product portfolios and incorporating mobile solutions into their product portfolios. So maybe we can spend a few minutes and you can walk us through how you see the market evolving, and then we'll talk about kind of the state of the state in the market.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm looking forward to also getting questions from the audience and see if we can real-time address them. But like you said, the MEAP was the acronym, Mobile Enterprise Application Platform, and there were companies like Antenna and Pixis and Spring Software. That's what's happening. How do we mobilize application? But when the smartphones came to market in 2007, the market shifted to have a whole bunch of MDM players, mobile device management, Mobile Lions, Enterprise, the bigger companies like Symantec bought companies, SAP. But I think the conversation is changing. And it started happening a couple of years ago, and I think it was led by BYOD. And suddenly people who have realized that shortcomings of those solutions, but how do you get more meaning out of it? Now, the new kind of companies which have started, and we are one of them, hopefully leading that pack, is about enterprise mobility. You worry about user experience. You worry about single sign-on experience. You worry about what can I do? It's not about managing the device. It's about managing the data. How do I manipulate data? Can I access native apps, web apps? And this is a whole bunch of new companies starting in this space, and there were acquisitions being made by larger companies, like you said. So pretty nascent, but pretty exciting. A lot of new names, but you gotta learn how to separate the right solution for your organization, which is the end-to-end.
Yeah, I see that too, and I see a lot of vendors moving in that direction. I mean, you made some really good points about how the market's evolved. And I would add to what you said, and what I've seen is, that influence of the iPhone when it announced, and the uptake in it, the uptake obviously in tablets, right? I don't think anyone expected the tablet market to grow up as fast as it did. Clearly that caused a reactive move from a lot of competitors, and the need to get in the tablet market is still an issue. Microsoft obviously recently with the Surface. Tablet computing is going to be really important. But what I've seen that I think is interesting is that pivot. And a lot of these established vendors that have been, kind of long tenured in the market, who really have what I like to call rugged roots. They started in this market as covering the rugged mobile computing market, and have made that pivot to the new modern mobile platforms with, and I'm referring to, obviously, when I say modern mobile platforms, smartphones and tablets. And I think, that's really what's happened. But I would agree with you in that a new generation of companies that are kind of mobile first, right? I like to use that expression. I used it earlier. People are thinking mobile first, and startups now are thinking mobile first, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a change.
yeah,
I think and that's a change, and obviously VCs are thinking mobile first as well, right? And they're investing in startups.
yeah.
So it's a very competitive market. Maybe you can talk to me a little bit more about how you're differentiated, because I think that's what a lot of people want to hear. You've mentioned, some established vendors that have a lot of tenure in the market.
Yeah, I think we are a pure play solution. So one of the
Mhm.
differentiation we have is that we don't do machine to machine. We don't do malware protection. We are totally 100% focused on enterprise mobility. We wake up thinking enterprise mobility, we go to sleep thinking enterprise mobility, and it's about this container-based approach with a rich user experience. So
Yeah.
should we ask our audience what do they?
Yeah, I know we have a final poll queued up
Uh,
to gauge where businesses are with BYOD, and I think that'll give us some interesting fodder on the back end here.
Folks, we'd like to hear what is the current plan of action within your organization for enterprise mobility, or BYOD. Have you already deployed? You plan to enable enterprise mobility within this year of 2012? Actively looking for a solution right now, or maybe no plans for enterprise mobility, but you were just curious about the topic? Let's take a look.
Ah, interesting. Another kind of nice dispersion of data here, but definitely a lot of interest in this area, right? We know it's a hot topic, but clearly a lot of folks are experimenting with beta testing, or even actively looking for a solution right now.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
the data even surprises me that how many people are well, we have a selective audience. I guess that's one reason. But they are looking for a solution. Yeah, well, biased data, but it's a good data.
It is. This is a really, there's a lot of competition there, and clearly, I think we've made a good, outlined everything pretty well today to give people an idea for the different solutions that are available out there.
Yeah.
We're just about to get to the Q&A. Before we do that, though, I do want to give everybody some resources where you can learn more. Of course, out at Bitzer Mobile website, the URL is on the screen. These URLs will be coming through the chat in just a moment, so you don't need to write them down. You can also learn more at VDC's mobile and wireless blog. You can request a copy of a detailed technical white paper about options for authentication and security. And if you'd like a free assessment of your enterprise mobility plan, contact info@bitzermobile.com. At this point, I'd like to ask all three of our panelists back to the virtual podium, and let's start airing some of these questions. And got one here, looks like a good one for you, Naeem. And Bill is asking, we already have MDM from Mobile Iron. Do I still need Bitzer?
My fact is that short answer is yes. The long answer is that in some companies already looking at mobile device management, and Mobile Iron is often names comes up, we sit next to them. So while you can use Mobile Iron to manage the device usage and the device related things, then the Bitzer container provides the secure connectivity and access to applications and everything else. So often we sit next to it, and some people who have not deployed a Mobile Iron or some other MDM solution, then we can also serve their needs through our mobile container management. But we have both scenarios. We are also integrating into some MDM players, so we are agnostic.
And this one for you, Andy, Kenneth is asking, as far as wiping the device, is selective container an option?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I also got one of those from Jeff. So all we can control is the container. So when we wipe, we are wiping only information inside the container, and that's the isolation between that personal and corporate. So it's only the corporate information that goes away that's inside the container. Nothing else on the device is affected.
And that's the whole thing about preserving the user experience, that we're not managing your device, you're managing your corporate data.
Eric, Adrian is asking, how corporations can deal with BYOD if they need to confiscate it for investigations. Policy will not help here because even the person signed it, he can still refuse to provide a device. It's a good question.
Yeah, that is a great question, and I'm assuming they mean that even if a person's signed a mobile policy for their personal device, that they can still refuse to provide it to the company if asked. I think that that's a thorny one, right? I think moving forward, unfortunately, there are likely to be more scenarios like this, and I would just say that this really puts it, the burden on companies to put mobile policies in place that are very comprehensive, and depending on, the environment that they are in, they really are going to have to start being careful about this. This real-time access that they're allowing their employees to have can obviously have a lot of risk associated with it, and that's something that comes up more and more when we do surveys out to the market is that risk element. Clearly, there's a lot of legal elements here as well, and I think this person is thinking in a direction from an HR perspective, right? Liability issues and a lot of issues that that BYOD can open up, and clearly security being paramount to an enterprise that's going down this path. Mobile policies too are part of that protection that a company is going to need when they do make the move and go down a mobile path.
All right. This one for you, Naeem, and Vlad is asking, and I think probably several folks on the line are thinking the same question. What is a licensing model, and what is a ballpark cost for each mobile unit?
Right. So licensing model is subscription. So you have a yearly contract, and pricing starts at $4 per user per month, and that gives you the secure container, the server, the app tunnel, and there's some additional option you can upgrade if you want to, but it's pretty affordable, $48 a year.
Over to you, Andy. How long does it take to install, and do I need to buy special servers?
Yep, good question. Really, the install is very simple. That's along with us trying to focus on user experience, the install is in a matter of minutes to hours certainly, and no need for special servers. So the product, the gateway server, installs in your DMZ on top of one of your existing boxes. No problem, and you can choose to have the control panel either as a hosted environment by us, or you can deploy it on premise.
And over to you, Naeem. Ben is asking, with the DLP option, you showed not being able to copy the personal email, but what about corporate email? Can you restrict copy and paste with the personal email, but not corp?
Yeah, no, we address both. So, we have a pretty good solution for both. And because we got to protect the corporate data. It has to be containerized. It has to be managed, not just access, but the content. And, same thing with attachments and links.
Okay. And back to you, Eric. This looks like a meaty one. Can you compare and contrast MAM container and MDM?
Yeah, that one I think we could do a separate webinar on. Yeah, so that is a great question, and it's something that I think is increasingly going to be an area that people are going to ask about. When Naeem and I talked about the competitive landscape, I like to call this the competing paths that are the market is witnessing right now. MAM, meaning mobile application management container, what Bitzer has brought to the market and what we described and went through today in their demo. And then, of course, traditional mobile device management, or MDM. I mean, these definitely are three competing ways to secure mobile applications. But MDM, I think a lot of vendors have had to, do this pivot and partnership or strategy that I've talked about. And they're all moving in this direction that Naeem has laid out earlier in the webinar that really, I think, ticked off the boxes as far as an end-to-end solution, because that's really what the market is going to require. They're not going to want disparate solutions from multiple vendors, right? They're going to want to have something that really can provide full coverage. So applications, basically the tick box, and I'm not going to go through it again, that Naeem laid out earlier in the webinar. But I mean, I would say, to really try to give this a just response in the limited time that I have to make a response here or give an answer, is that, I think it really comes down to, I guess a typical analyst answer. It unfortunately depends on your IT environment, your technology infrastructure, your needs, how much security you require for your environment. There are solutions that, have a more ingrained secure element to them, that have an authentication element to them. that are differentiated. So I think it really does come down to what you're trying to do and what your needs are. There are some people who lead with one capability or specialists in that area of these three approaches.
Okay, then over to you, Naeem. Brett is asking, can you deploy internal apps in the container box?
Yes. That's the short answer, yes.
The short answer.
And ask me how, but your answer is yes.
Would you like to expand? And how does that work?
So answer is yes, because like I said, apps could be native apps, could be HTML5 apps, could be web apps. So we handle all of them. So and the mechanism is slightly different, but the whole point is that you want to give users first the secure access, but then they want to be able to run applications, because this is how a doctor can see more patients per day, or a salesperson can close more deals. So you want to be able to have apps. One of the most popular apps we are seeing right now is internal approval. In large companies, getting lots of emails, you need to approve a discount level. It's got to go through 5 levels of signature. Today it can take 5 days because everybody's traveling. They look at the email at the end of the day, they approve it, goes to the next person. Now you write a mobile app which allows you to quickly, yes, no, and within an hour you got 5 signatures. So this is the kind of productivity people are saying. So it has to be all about apps. Another popular one is like Oracle Business Intelligence, OBI. People want to see a dashboard quickly on the mobile device. That's a web app. Again, secure browser, data protected, full authentication. Good way to do it. So yes, short answer is yes.
All right. Mandeep is asking, how does Bitzer deal with geofencing on iOS platform?
So we use the location services provided by iOS, and so basically there are some restrictions around privacy. So we have to ask the user, do you want to turn location services on, just like any app. And if they've selected yes, then we use that local location services, and you know exactly when the user is accessing the container and where each action has happened. So that's how we handle that with iOS and Android, and each of the platforms.
Pardon me if I'm not pronouncing correctly. Nitin is asking, instead of BYOD, is anyone looking at CDPU, so company device for personal use, and are the issues the same? Maybe good for Eric.
Yeah, I'd love to get Naeem's take as well, and Andy's. I think this is an interesting one and an important one, so I'm glad it came up. I think a lot of folks are using acronyms a lot. This is one I hadn't heard of yet, so that is a new one to me. I've heard corporate owned, personally enabled, but it's the same thing, right? And I think what's interesting is that I think the market's changing, right? We know that a lot of folks are still on this corporate owned path, right? I know for a fact my wife has a BlackBerry. A personal device being provisioned by her company, and then her own personal device, which she's not allowed to use in the workplace. But moving forward, I think I'm hearing companies starting to offer CDPU options. Okay, so meaning they'll say, yeah, when you start and you come on board, depending on your role in the organization, yeah, you're going to be offered a BlackBerry or maybe an Android or an iOS device, right? So they're supporting cross-platform environments, but they're corporate-owned devices. So there's a lot of crossover here happening because it's still a BYOD environment, but, well, it's not BYOD, but it's a cross-platform environment, and it's a corporate-owned device. So I think the issues are largely the same. Love to hear what Naeem and Andy think about that.
Yeah, I think, Nathan, a good question, because the rules are the same.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you still have to worry about authentication. You still have to worry about data security in transit and at rest. The only thing you can relax is a corporate-owned device is perhaps that isolation of personal, or maybe some of the more harsh MDM rules could be more tolerable. But everything we talked about today still applies. You still got to worry about single sign-on. Still got to worry about single corporate user. So what we laid out here still is relevant to both corporate-owned and bring your own.
Yeah, that's the way I see it too. But that was a great question. I'm glad it came up.
Yeah.
Yes, and it looks like we're brushing up against the top of the hour. Let's go with one last question for you, Naeem. Is this a cloud-based solution or on-premise?
Well, it could be both. So basically, it's depending on your security policy. Some people feel they have a gun to their head to move things to cloud so they can provide access. We take the gun away. So our BMAX server totally provides secure access on-premise application and on-premise data, especially SharePoint. But if you already move to the cloud, then BMAX talk to the cloud post-authentication. So either way is fine. But I didn't want to mention one thing which we never talked about, time's running out, is about how do you get apps into the container. And we do have something called App Catalog, which is our way of distributing applications or apps into the container. So there's a corporate app store. When you have sanctioned the apps which you're happy with, then based on your role, you can see them, you can download them, install them in the container, or you can even push them. IT can push them into your container. So I just wanted to make sure people knew that.
Thank you for jumping on that question, Naeem. And folks, we are at that time, and I would like to thank each of you for joining us today and hope you found today's webinar of value and that you'll want to join us for some future events. You will be receiving a short survey at the end of the webinar, so please take a moment to fill it out. Additionally, for the questions that continue to come in and that we haven't been able to answer on air, we'll have a Bitzer consultant reply as soon as possible. As mentioned, you will get a copy of the webcast that you can use as an on-demand viewing via email early next week. And a very special thanks to our speakers and our sponsors today that made today possible. And again, as your moderator, this is Lori Dearman saying thank you and have a great rest of the week. Goodbye for now.